There it is. I didn't want to talk over that, and there it is. Uh, yes, webinar is being recorded. And here are our guests today. So we've got Irina from Brightwheel. She's going to be joining us to have a discussion about Brightwheel. And then from our data team, we've got Sarah Kelly, Catherine Arthur, and Joanna Cobb. They're going to be talking about goal setting and impact. And with that, I will hand it over to Irina. And I believe Leah will be joining in on the Brightwheel discussion for you all. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. And I'm really excited to be here today. Can everybody hear me okay? Just a few thumbs up. I just want to make sure. All right, great. Real briefly, an intro. So my name is Irina, and I'm an account manager for our government partnerships across the country, including Childcare Aware Washington. Again, I'm super excited to be here today and talk a little bit more about Brightwheel platform, what it has to offer. And I think this session will leave you with a lot of valuable insights that you will be able to take in and share, or help you re-engage the programs and get them back on track, or just any valuable new information for anybody who is just joining us. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Oh, sorry, 1 second. All right, and can you see this okay? All right, wonderful. And I can make it a little bit bigger if needs to, just let me know. But again, truly thanking you for taking time to learn more about a Brightwheel platform and what it has to offer. So I will make sure to address any questions after this session. So if you post anything in the chat, we'll just come back to that. So I'm going to cover a few things today. I'll talk about what makes Brightwheel different and go over some key product highlights. We will also dive into our features to give you insights about how programs use Brightwheel every day to save time and efficiently manage their programs, build quality connections with family and staff, and strengthen their businesses as well. Before I dive in, I want to give you just a little bit of a background on how Brightwheel was founded. Our CEO, Dave Vasson, became a father one day and experienced firsthand the challenges parents face in staying connected with their child's early education experience. So he recognized the lack of effective communication channels and the administrative burden on educators. So this truly motivated Dave to explore how technology could address these pain points and improve the early education industry. So over the years, Brightwheel gained widespread adoption across the United States and even expanded its reach internationally. Our platform became a trusted solution for early education providers, receiving positive feedback from educators, administrators, and parents alike. And today, our company continues to evolve and innovate, driven by the mission to transform the early education experience. So what you see on this slide is Dave pitching to the sharks. I'm sure you're familiar with the Shark Tank, but that was the beginning of the journey. So we're excited to be where we are today. So with Brightwheel, everything a program needs is really integrated into one app. And today I'm going to cover the basics of management and operations as well as engagement. So and the key pieces of this would be student management, invoicing and bill pay, admissions, sign-in and ratios, schedule, staff management, as well as daily activities, messaging, learning, and photos. So when you first get into Brightwheel and logging on the desktop, it will bring you, the administrator, to the main admin dashboard. So from this overview, admins can easily see things like classrooms, current room ratios, upcoming birthdays, and today's logged activities. So every day, a program and an administrator will have a simple dashboard that will give them access to all the information they might need at any moment. So it's really like their go-to for anything they need, whether for licensing and their surprise visits or just to help them quickly work through a day-to-day. And I will tell you, our admins and directors truly love it. So once all the student information is in Brightwheel, Programs will easily have access to all of the student profiles anywhere since the information lives in the cloud. So, and we really make it easy getting started with our simple roster upload tool. So you see here that there is an upload roster button, and all like an administrator has to do is just drag and drop the information, and in about 48 hours, the data will be uploaded in Brightwell. So once the student profiles are built and uploaded, they will be able to easily track things like allergies, medications, maybe pediatrician information, and they can access the activity feed, learning profiles, and easily track things like upcoming and overdue immunizations and any other student documents. If a program participates in the CACP meal program, they can track the students' meals types here as well, and we'll track how many meals they receive monthly. I want to dive into our sign-in process. And truly, the check-in system is our most used feature each day. So we have customers in all 50 states, so program can feel confident that they'll be compliant. Many licensing offices actually love Brightwell because it shows them exactly what they need, and they know it aligns with the requirements. If an administrator needs a hard copy, they can easily print it out as well. So importantly, as with most things in Brightwell, they will be able to customize it to their needs and preferences. Like, do they want to add a digital signature? Absolutely, they can turn on that option. If they want a parent to sign in from their own phones using a QR code, absolutely, they'll be able to turn that feature as well. And you can see here an example where parents can sign in with a PIN code or even scan from their phone. The scan option is loved truly by both staff and parents. And they can have 10 parents signing in at the same time as opposed to waiting in line. So for programs that do drive-by drop-offs, maybe it's also incredibly convenient to scan and pull forward. Admins can print the QR codes and place it in various points at the program, like in the lobby, so parents can scan on the way out, as an example. So this exact same kiosk can be used by staff members as well. That way they can get real-time ratios moment by moment, and an administrator sees that, like you can see it here on the right side, and admins will have an easy view into that on the app, on the web. So the admins will now be able to monitor exact ratios real-time, really from anywhere. So with our attendance mode, staff can quickly mark here or like absent for many students at once. And if they ever move students, teachers can move any number of students from one room to another as well. So this kiosk is essentially the gateway to programs every day and really looks so nice and easy to navigate. So this just proves that our focus is to save programs time. And on top of that, we also want to help them present their best to both staff and parents. This is an example of a printout check-in student report with the captured images of the signatures. Again, if somebody needs like a hard copy, those can be easily printed. So next, I want to dive into our photos and videos. I truly think that's one of the first activities that get adopted by the programs. And we know that a lot of teachers want to share images from the classroom, but sometimes they find it kind of cumbersome. So usually it will require selecting and attaching files or choosing who to send things to. So in our case, a staff member or an administrator will just have to take a photo, tag the child, and that's really it. So we'll take care of the rest. Parents get a custom feed on their app with just the image of their child. It's really a quick and powerful way to increase parent satisfaction. And we've truly measured this. We can also measure that teachers on average take more photos with Brightwell, but with less time. And again, it will be totally up to program which features they want to use, but it's really like a big win for parents to get a photo during the day. And we hear all the time from staff that they really appreciate that parents can easily say thank you by tapping the heart under each photo, as you can see in that slide. Messaging feature is what's really great about Brightwell messaging is that it's integrated. So staff and administrators, they don't have to go checking emails or texts or voicemails. So essentially, they and parents can know that messages in the same system that everybody uses. So it's all integrated and everything is in one place. And I can tell you that when you compare messages sent in Brightwheel versus even an email, parents are far more likely to see and respond to messaging within Brightwheel. It's also custom built for early education. For example, when a teacher wants to send a message, we've observed that they don't want to have to think about who a child's parents are. Instead, they can simply select the child, send a message, and know that the right people will receive it. And messages can be sent to the whole school or to individual rooms, individual families, or to any subset of families. And as an administrator, they'll be able to see like everything. They can easily check in on a teacher to parent messaging. They can also have a private thread if needs to, so they can really choose. If there is an emergency, in addition to a Brightwheel message, they can also send an SMS alert. And we know some licensing agencies actually require this, and we know it's being handy for school closures and bad weather. So in addition to quick messages, as you can see on the right, admins and staff can also send newsletters. That's really a big part of why families report feeling more connected to the schools after Brightwheel is introduced. I want to quickly touch on the staff management and staff messaging as well. So we all know how hard it is to attract, hire, and retain teachers and staff nowadays. Now, the good news is that Brightwheel is really a fantastic retention tool. So we make teachers' lives far easier and save them a lot of time each day, which leads to high retention and high overall happiness amongst the staff. So essentially, we give you the right point of view to see everything you need with managing the staff, right? So you can track every detail that you want. So the admins will be able to see everything from contact information to professional development hours. And importantly, we also have a variety of permissions. So an administrator can decide and manage within the system how they want to manage staff. I also want to emphasize the image on the right. So the admins will be able to directly private message one staff member or create groups if they want to. And this really streamlines communication as you have only, like, again, one place to look every day. Quickly going back to our activities, and I wanted to highlight this one because I think it's still a very important topic for a lot of programs when it comes to assisting with documenting temperatures for COVID. So I just want you to look how simply it can be done in Brightwheel. You'll just navigate to all the activities on the Apple web, select the purple health check icon, and then you'll see the kids in the classroom, select the child you want to log, document the temperature as well as any notes you want to add, and then this information is added to the feed as well. Again, it's still very important to many programs, and I just wanted to highlight it here too. Moving on to document management and calendars. I definitely want to talk through this just to explain the other ways we help our programs with the day-to-day. So first, we know how hard it is to keep track of various documents. So we've seen the folders filled with documents, whether those are in like filing cabinets or folders in the computer. So we created a document hub where an administrator can store and manage everything. So they can choose what they want to share with the families for the whole school, maybe by a room. And imagine when a new family joins a program, they have all those welcome documents already prepared and ready for them, right? Or if a parent is trying to search through the entire inbox to find an email attachment, so they don't have to deal with that anymore. It's all right within Brightwheel. So all the documents can be easily added, shared, removed. Everything can be controlled and managed by the administrator. Similarly, we have a digital calendar when an admin can schedule events for specific rooms or the whole school. And these are also easily visible to parents in the parent app. So truly with both of these features, we've created tools to help make things more streamlined. And that's even also cost savings of not having to print and manage so much paper. The next feature I want to touch on is menus, meal planning, and CACFP. We truly make that meal planning a breeze. So if a program likes, they can set up weekly meal plans that are actually enjoyable to use. So you can check out this animation on the left of your screen to see how easy this is. And on the right, look how simple it is to add the meal items. Like in the classroom, it's extremely easy and intuitive to track meals. And an admin or a staff can easily create several CACFP compliant reports to submit for reimbursement. We have programs across all 50 states that are using this to get dollars in the pocket using CACFP or similar programs. And as with anything else in Brightwell, they will be able to choose what they want to use and ignore the rest. So I always say that our job is to take whatever the program is already doing and make it easier, faster, and more integrated. All right, the next feature I really want to highlight is admissions. I think it's one of our core and key features for a lot of the programs. As we know, a smooth admissions and enrollment process is important in creating first positive impression with the family. So far as admission goes, we really talked a lot of programs, and the most common feedback we receive is that it's either too time consuming and complex to manage the admission process, way too many spreadsheets, they waste a lot of ink maybe and money with printed packets, parents submit half filled out paperwork, and then admins have to chase them down, and just so much more feedback. In building admissions, Brightwell truly prioritizes two things: customization and ease of use. So the admin will be able to design the process that's right for them, and they can easily track everything as well. They can create different forms, they can collect documents, everything is up to them. So, and we do it in a way that will create a professional experience for the program and parents, truly making it like one easy, intuitive, and modern process. It is easy to collect documents from families, like a birth certificate, maybe an immunization form, and admins can submit a document request and parents can upload it. So if a program has contracts or state required forms that just require signature, they can simply upload them for parents to sign and submit back. There's no extra apps or programs to download. It's all there and the same system, and staff and parents will use for everything else. With Brightwell, the program can instead use custom forms as well and make fields required. So parents have to answer certain questions. This way, the key data is captured, and what it means for the administrator is that no more incomplete forms. Additionally, if for licensing requirements, any of these forms need to be printed, they always can be in Brightwell, and they can be stored like, separately. So additionally, once all the forms are created, they can be linked directly on the website or like a social media page, whatever the program can be or might be using. So when parents are interested, they can simply fill out a form, submit it, and it will auto-create a profile in the admissions dashboard. So then administrators will be able to easily track prospects, families who have toured, maybe applied, or have been added to the wait list. Next core and key feature as well, which is really widely used by the programs, is billing. It is the most powerful and easy to use billing system in early education, built from the ground up for early education specifically. So programs can easily bill families, collect payments, manage business, just in general. And we help ensure that they can get paid on time every time. So what we as a company generally hear is that our customers want a system that will automate everything, something modern and easy to use, something that saves meaningful time, a tool that will give them a better understanding of the business. And that's truly the reason that nearly every customer that joins Brightwell uses our billing service, because we check all of those boxes. So let's look at a glance dashboard. So in a single glance, an admin will get a full financial picture of the business in real time. So they can clearly view cash flows, recent activity. This quick visibility gives them the control and kind of power to take action when necessary. So next, let's look at how they can customize and automate all the billing needs. They can establish automatic invoices weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, bi-weekly, different cadences. They can add any number of charges and discounts. In addition to automatic recurring charges, they can send one-time charges such as registration fees or materials fees or whatnot. And we've partnered with programs across the country to make it really powerful and perfectly customizable while still being super easy to learn and fast to use. So it really just takes a few minutes to set up billing for like a whole classroom. So in addition, we recently built a one-of-a-kind subsidy management tool. This is really the only tool of its kind that lets the program easily track both expected and received subsidy funds. So once they receive a subsidy payment, they can simply log it in Brightwheel as if it was just another payer. So this is also fully integrated into all of the bill plans and the reporting. So an admin can easily understand all the activity and know which agency accounts are up to date. So the reporting piece is especially helpful. And now they will be able to filter results to include private payers, agency payers, or if they want to combine all of them together. So this is really another great example of how we're always listening to the customer feedback. And this new enhanced version of subsidy is just recently launched. So we're constantly taking feedback and making improvements in it as well. The next important piece of the platform is education. And Brightwheel has truly the most comprehensive learning platform in the industry. It's all integrated so that the teachers and parents are all in the same system they use for everything else. So we provide easy-to-use tools to create and distribute the curriculum digitally. This makes it easy to create weekly schedules for teachers and easy to share lessons and activities with parents as well. We were the first company in early education to include all 50 states' early learning standards so that they can be aligned with activities for state, recommended standards for child development. And in many programs, that's actually required. So we made it super easy. So we then make it incredibly easy to do observations and document child development as well. So on the left of the slide, you can see that when a teacher is viewing a lesson, they only have to click one button to jump right into an observation. So that observation is seamlessly linked to the specific skills and milestones for the activity and the age of the child. Then staff can easily track child progress using our reporting so that they can see where each child is and use that for future planning. Within all this, they can also easily add photos to capture like activity or work that the child is doing. And they can share any of these activities and observations with parents, or they can keep it private. So it's essentially like a private note just for the teachers to use for themselves. A super exciting recent update is that we've added an option to add curriculum, actually experience curriculum directly in our system. So it's an add-on, but it truly has been such an amazing experience, as Experience Early Learning is one of the most recognized curriculum companies in early education. It is backed by more than 25 years of history, deep research in the field, and used daily by thousands of programs. So they provide a robust and a comprehensive learning program that will cut down hours and hours of prep time, deliver like a high quality educational experience for students and staff. So essentially think of it as a school in a box. All the required materials are shipped directly to the program on a monthly basis with weekly and daily programs that they can tailor to their needs. And the materials includes picture books, stickers, art supplies, and just so much more depending on the theme. So what our current subscribers love is that the materials are included, so they don't have to spend time printing them or buying different supplies. And it becomes even more powerful with Brightwheel because all the activities would be available in digital format, so including things like music. And then they can seamlessly do observations and state-aligned childhood development assessments if they like. So one of the things that I really love is when you do an activity in the classroom, it can be like automatically shared with a parent. I think just coming from a parent perspective, I think that's the really most important aspect. And this helps with parent engagement as well. So I do want to touch on a couple of recent updates, and I want to highlight that we always take our feedback extremely, extremely seriously. And our product team truly acts on the feedback that we collect from our programs. So, and one of the most recent releases was based on the high ask. It is Brightwheel Portfolios. Super excited about this feature that enables child's teachers to efficiently curate and deliver portfolios that tell a like really strong story of how the child is progressing at school. And these portfolios are essentially like an artifact that will typically contain various sections, including text, photos, observations, and notes. So teachers' benefits is really quickly and robustly tell the story of a student's progress, saving time and increasing the quality of their reporting. And for families, is understanding child's progress as well as building excitement and trust in the program they attend. Another super exciting update is a family directory. So that was also built based on the feedback from many programs. So now they're able to stay connected, or parents able to stay connected with other Brightwell families. And it can be all easily managed both on the admin side and the parent side. So if parents want to opt out, they certainly can in the settings within the app, and so can the administrators. So now that I have covered most of the wonderful features that are available in Brightwell, I want to touch on the onboarding process. I think it's a very crucial moment. And I've mentioned that it's extremely easy to get going with Brightwell. The platform is extremely intuitive, and a lot of programs are really able to get set up and running on their own. But we do have a dedicated government onboarding team that is able to help navigate through the initial steps of the setup. So, and we do offer various training paths based on the comfort level. So this team is going to help get started with Brightwell and work to ensure a smooth and fast rollout to staff and families as well. So after a program signs up, they will also have access to recorded training materials that they can watch and share with the staff. Additionally, we have a live chat support, and our program's constantly raving about this function because they can get the most urgent questions answered just in a matter of minutes. And lastly, with all the amazing features under one roof, it's really not surprising why we have such high retention and satisfaction ratings. So not only are we going to save a program like a lot of hours per month, we also help increase staff satisfaction, parent satisfaction by giving them deeper insights into the value of the program provides for their kids every single day. So, and that will conclude it for me. I hope this informational session was very helpful, but I'm ready to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Irina. Just to link this Brightwell presentation to CCA, most coaches are probably aware of this, but some of you may not be. CCA is funded for 100 Brightwell slots for the fiscal year, or it's not fiscal year, but for the year starting November 1st to October. We're ending a current 100 funded slots right now. And so we got funding again to begin in November through next October. So that's why we had Irina come today. Some of you have been in contact with me. I am managing our Brightwell piece of the contract this year. So some of you have been in contact with me already as we're trying to figure out which existing Brightwell providers want to continue and which do not, so that we know how many slots we have left. We think right now we probably have somewhere between, I'm going to say 12 to 15 slots, but we're still kind of getting answers back from people. So if you know of a provider on your caseload who would be interested in trying it out for a year, you can email me directly. I'll drop my email on the chat, and give me their name and provider number, and we can enroll them. And pretty soon we'll get information out to all of the regions on how many slots are available exactly to get us to that 100. And so, Irina, we did have some questions in the chat. First, could you talk a little bit about Brightwell in relation to other languages? I know it's available in Spanish right now, but there were some questions about other languages potentially coming in the future.
Yeah, that's definitely a great question, and important to recognize that there are other language speaking groups that are part of some of our organizations, and that's very important feedback for us too. I think our first step was providing the app on the web and translating it into Spanish to really being able to service a lot of our programs, current programs, and we just have to understand the need for other language speaking groups so we can bring this to our product and understand how we can prioritize it. So with that being said, if you think that there is a need, we just have to kind of map it out. We have to put that on our roadmap. And the more we hear about the need for other languages, the quicker it's going to happen.
Yes, thank you. Another question was, are there memory limits on storage of the forms in Brightwheel? How long are they stored?
Forever. Yes, there is no limit.
Okay. And someone said, I have had a provider struggle coordinating Brightwheel with QuickBooks. Has this issue been addressed or resolved?
Well, it would be very helpful to understand exactly the issue they ran into. We are currently compatible with the QuickBooks Online version. And if I haven't shared the resources yet, I would be very happy to provide that to you, Leah, so you can share with everybody else, so add it to the, to the list of your resources as well. So it does provide a step-by-step guide on how to pull up the reports and actually enter the data into Brightwheel, so it can be easily transitioned and recognized in QuickBooks. But again, it is compatible with the online piece. To investigate further, again, I would just love to hear exactly what issue they ran into.
Okay, so anyone who has a provider who's experiencing any kind of issue like this, go ahead and email me. And as we get our 100 slots filled for this year and move forward, we'll be offering some, lots of different varieties of TA to coaches and providers. So we'll start to gauge what the need is and then offer those things.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, does Brightwheel have support for providers to complete their, I don't know if you'll know this, Irina, but maybe somebody else on my team might, have support for providers to complete their Washington Early Learning Curricular Alignment Tool worksheets and or WaKids Assessment Alignment Tool?
Sorry, could you elaborate on that question? What do you mean by helping? Just help create that?
So our providers are required to use particular curriculum, and if they don't use one of the specified, then they can take a curriculum that they're using and do an alignment tool to show that it aligns with like state requirements.
Okay, got it. Great question. I don't believe that we can incorporate any curriculums outside of what we're currently using in Brightwheel. But again, if it's an ask for a large group of programs, if we can identify how many we have, then we definitely can bring it to the product's attention and talk further about assisting them with that.
Okay, it's probably something worth exploring possibly within our
Absolutely.
Okay. Does Brightwheel menu tracking align with the CACFP requirements?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then we've had a couple different questions relating to pricing. The price continues to be a frequent question, especially as we're offering 1 year, and so programs are curious about what is the pricing for if they had to pay on their own.
Yes, definitely a great question too. I always say if a program joins now, it's a little bit premature to talk about pricing because things might change in a year. But what I would say is it's based on the capacity. And when we get closer to the expiration of the contract time, we usually start having these conversations with the programs. I mean, I do recognize that they would want to have some sort of idea, just to maybe budget for the next year. And we can certainly talk about ranges. It just will really depend on the capacity and what their current enrollment is. So how we've been working with some other organizations that maybe did pilots and then programs were transitioned to self-pay is they start reaching out to us about 3-4 months ahead of time. And at the end of the contract, we usually give that additional months of free trial just to give them plenty of time to discuss the pricing with our subscription team. Again, look at the things like what's the capacity or what's the current enrollment. If there is a big gap, our teams are usually extremely flexible in working with them based on whatever situation they might be going through. And then that would be the more appropriate time to start having a conversation.
Okay, and something I would add to that too from CCA's perspective is we hope to have funding continue for a number of providers each year and maybe to grow that number. Part of what we want to do this year with the CCA funding is really demonstrate to our funder how helpful and useful this is for providers. So for the providers who are enrolled this year, we want to get as many to full implementation as possible and then get feedback so that we can demonstrate, you know, how useful it is and advocate for more support for this. Let's see, going back to the chat here. There's a question about QI awards to pay for Brightwell. That's a question for us that maybe we'll go back to in just a second. I think I got all of them except there's one.
I saw quickly a question also pertaining to pricing and maybe, but I can't see it fully.
Is pricing tiered depending on what options programs opt into?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. It's not. It's strictly based on the capacity, and the enrollment is taken into consideration as well. So we don't offer essentially a la carte options. It's a premium subscription that includes everything. So it won't matter if any of the features are utilized or not. So obviously the goal is for the programs to adopt everything, but there is no tier structure.
I think I got all the questions, but if I missed one, somebody jump in. And if there are other questions, feel free to unmute and ask or drop them in now.
I got a question this morning that I couldn't answer. One of the sites that's using Brightwheel has parents who are separated and they have one child and they do not want to share an account. Can they create 2 accounts for the one child?
Yes, absolutely. They'll just create a duplicate account.
Okay.
And this way, everything is going to be completely separate.
Okay. I will let them know.
Perfect.
Is there a number or something they can call if they need support with that?
So there is no phone number, but we do have live chat. And as I mentioned, that's truly the best and quickest way to get a hold of our support team. So the live chat is available on the main account page, and there is literally no wait time for the live chat. So they can get a hold of somebody almost immediately and get all of their questions answered.
All right. Thank you. I will let them know.
Absolutely.
I had 2 questions. One of them came up when we first started using this, I guess, pilot. So I'm working with a few programs that use Brightwheel, but one of them in particular wanted to know if there's any type of incentive for those programs that are already using it. They, for some reason, I don't know if they were considered or not for one of the 100 slots, but can programs that are already using it be considered for one of those slots? And or if not, is there any kind of a discount or anything for them during this kind of pilot process? And then the other question had to do with the curriculum. Is it standardized, or what do we know about the curriculum, or what can we pass on?
Yeah, so Kelly, I can answer your first question.
Okay.
The answer is yes. If you have a provider who is currently using Brightwheel, paying for it on their own, and they would like to use it for this next year under CCA funding, just send me their name and license ID.
Okay.
So look them up in Impact, and I can get that information to Irina, and she can just transfer them over.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then I'll let Irina do the second question.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the education piece, we do have the curriculums that aligned with the state standards preloaded into Brightwheel system. And additionally, we merged with what used to be a Mother Goose, the Experience early curriculum tool that is available as an option.
Okay. So this is Mother Goose is part of, this is all one now. Mother Goose is part of this. Is that what I heard you say.
Yeah, we added it as an option for the programs if they want to. It's not included in the premium. That's really the only thing that's not included in the premium. So if they choose to opt in and utilize this curriculum, they certainly can purchase it individually. We do have some organizations that explore an option of maybe purchasing a number of spots, just depending on how many providers can be interested. That's something else we can definitely chat separately about. But
Okay,
if anybody is interested in learning exactly what the Experience Early Learning curriculum is about, I can share a link. We do have a dedicated team that can just book like a one-on-one and walk them through a demo, really in-depth understanding of what they will get. So just in a nutshell, they would be getting the physical materials as well as the digitalized lessons. So everything is going to be incorporated in Brightwell, as well as they will get the actual materials to their door. And for anybody who has been previously using Goose, that account, they can just let us know and we can integrate it in Brightwell. So they'll be able to access everything within one platform.
Okay. But I also did hear you say that this curriculum is standardized with the state standards.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Irina, there's a question too about once a provider signs up for Brightwheel, what does the orientation look like and who do they contact for that? If you could just talk about that onboarding piece a little bit.
Absolutely. So I think it might be helpful if I just share that particular slide real quickly. So give me 1 second. And I can send it to you, Leo, as well. So just a one-pager. All right. So we, as I was mentioning, we do have a dedicated government onboarding team. And if we determine that we want to set up, for example, a group training session, we always can. Nady, who is our group trainer, provides sessions in English and in Spanish. Okay. So if we don't need the group training session, each program that joins is welcome to Brightwell. So essentially they will receive a welcome email. They will be introduced to Nady. Nady will be their initial point of contact. And from there on, they will be assigned to a dedicated onboarder who will be monitoring their progress and activation. Like in the first, the goal is to get them activated in the first 90 days. Again, I mentioned that a lot of programs do activate on their own in a lot shorter period of time, which is a lot that 90 days to account for maybe some delays like in scheduling for trainings or whatnot. And there are various paths. They can do one-on-one trainings, they can do webinar trainings, just whatever their comfort level is, whatever they prefer. Additionally, after the onboarder is assigned to each program, they will also be assigned to our engagement billing specialist. So that team specifically works on the billing adoption. So essentially, they will have 2 points of contact. So one person will be working on walking a program through the initial setup and making sure that they get to that activation. And the billing engagement specialist is going to be working specifically on the billing activation, making sure they get verified. They can help with setting up the bill plans, understanding how to enter charges, how to start invoicing parents, all of that. After the account gets activated, they're out of the onboarding process and they will be able to get any type of support from our wonderful support team.
Okay, hopefully that answered that question. I think we just have 1 or 2 more and then we'll wrap up. And I will invite anyone to send further questions that you have about Brightwheel to me directly, and then I can get answers to you. One question is, will providers be able to pull all their data if they don't continue with Brightwheel?
Yes, absolutely. just like with any other platform, there is usually a roster upload tool. I'm not necessarily sure how it might be called with other CCMS, but yes.
Okay. And one more is somebody was asking for a clarification. So the experience curriculum is included with the premium subscription. Is that correct?
No, it's not. That's one option that is not included. That is an additional feature. That's an optional feature. I apologize. That's not part of the premium.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Irina, for being here. I think we got through all the questions. We will review the chat and make sure that we did. And coaches, if you have any other questions, you can send them to me. I'm going to drop my email in the chat right now. And
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all so much. It's really great seeing everybody's like, gosh, 7 pages. It's a lot of folks here today. So, but yes, nice meeting all of you, and hopefully I will be hearing a lot more from all of you, and we'll find ways to support the programs. So thank you all so much.
thank you. Handing back over to Michael.
Thank you, Leah, and thank you, Irina. Yeah, if you have any other questions, just email Leah and we'll get those Brightwell questions answered for you. But now it is time for a quick break before the data team hops on. So it is 2:55. If we could all be back here by 3, quick 5-minute break, and we will we'll kick it away with the data team. So I will see you back here in 5.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. For those that are not familiar with me, I'm Sarah Kelly. I'm the Director of Data and Evaluation at Child Care WA Washington, and we're talking about goals today. Before I share we're going to do 2 things today. I have an infographic, and then we'll actually go through entering a goal and impact, updating the status, and a new way to enter goals. Before we jump into that, I just want to say that we are kind of building our muscle around how we report on goals, mainly because I think that we had a really good opportunity going from WELS to impact to have more customizable data around what we collect around goals, but also because we're working on using goals more effectively to tell the story of coaching and to show how coaching aligns with the new recognition process and giving us more rich information about the quality of coaching. And I say that because there has been a lot of discussion over years and years around how do we tell the story of coaching? How do we do so without relying so heavily on hours? And how do we get to the impact of coaching? And goals have always been a good way to do that, but we haven't always had enough context in how we've recorded goals to get a good sense of how goals can really tell that story of what coaches are working on and how it aligns with the cadence of the early achiever system. And that's becoming increasingly more important as we want to make sure that we have good information around how coaching is working these days within the new recognition process. So I'm going to start off with sharing an infographic. I invite all of my colleagues to monitor the chat and just interrupt me if you get a question. I'd rather answer questions in real time in addition to at the end. So I'm putting in the chat 2 things. I'm putting a new infographic around goals and also the impact guide, which is not new, but it does have the guidance around goals. So we'll be referencing that a little bit. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And go to present mode. Can you all see my screen now? Yeah, okay, great. So one of the things that we have in Impact is a question about goal type. And we've recently updated the goal type categories. There's 4 of them. You'll see 3 here because I've lumped short and long term together. So the first one is in the green, we have 3-year continuous quality improvement. Then in the yellow, we have short and long-term goals. And then there in the orange, we have quality improvement plan related to quality improvement awards. I'm going to first talk about our green in the continuous quality improvement plan. We're adjusting the language that we use around goals to clarify what is a QIP and what is a goal. And specifically, there is 2 types of QIPs. One is your 3-year continuous QIP, and the other is your QIP related to QIA. And that is different than just goals, which are represented in the yellow, are short-term and long-term goals. A 3-year continuous quality improvement plan is the goal that is intended to be written as a response and reflection of their program profile report. So when you have a provider who receives their report, the intention is that you'll sit down with that provider, and in partnership with the provider, you'll develop a 3-year continuous quality improvement plan. This goal, because it's long-term, because it's 3 years, it's generally going to be pretty broad. And the arrow going to the short and long-term goals, often what might happen is that you'll write a really large umbrella goal about what do we want to achieve in the next 3 years. And then your short and long-term goals will kind of flesh out what are the steps to do that. You'll also note that having a 3-year continuous quality improvement plan, it's about 3 years. The intention in the new system is that you would do your program profile, finalize your video highlights and any other components you want to finalize before you finalize your recognition. And it is the recognition date is the anniversary. 3 years from then is when you're going to repeat program profile. So it's kind of roughly 3 years, maybe 3 to 4, but it's giving you that roadmap for what do we want to work on coming out of program profile, and where do we want to end up 3 to 4 years from now when we're doing program profile again. And along the way, you'll have your short and your long-term goals, and there's a little light bulb there. And generally, the short and long-term goals are goals that are supporting the overall CQI plan. The short-term goals are expected to be like 1 to 3 months, and the long-term goals can take 3 months to several years. And that's reflected in your, there's actually a field that says, is this a short-term or long-term goal? So that's kind of how, in the goals, there's short-term, long-term, the 3-year CQI, and then the QIA. So you'll be able to specify the short-term and long-term, but you'll also have a target completion date. So we'll have a little bit more context into how long you anticipate to spend on that goal. And the little light bulb is about video highlights, because as providers finalize their video highlights, these short and long-term goals should be informed by their quick scores. And in particular, if a provider has low quick scores, that's a good indication that a goal could be set around that specific item. And then we move on to the quality improvement plan related to QIA. I kind of modeled this around the cycle, and think in my mind, it's modeled around probably a new provider coming in. So once they've made that step of having a program profile, they're going to have their 3-year continuous quality improvement plan. You're going to have some short and long-term goals related to that overarching plan. And eventually they're going to finalize their rating. And then you're going to create that quality improvement plan related to QIA when they get their quality improvement award. For some of your existing providers that are already rated and receiving quality improvement awards, they'll probably fall in different phases around this circle. And the QIP related to the QIA is a plan developed in partnership with providers for the spending of their quality improvement award funds. There's also a checkbox that says, is this goal related to QIA? You really want to have one overarching quality improvement plan around their quality improvement award, but you also might have a short or a long-term goal that are related to the quality improvement award. An example would be if I made a plan in my quality improvement award that says, I want to use these funds to support my program's literacy curriculum. And part of that is purchasing books. Well, I might make a short-term goal that says the provider is going to practice these specific storytelling techniques in her circle time, and that's related to the overarching QIA goal around literacy curriculum. So you have, the idea is that you'd really have one active green goal, the 3-year continuous quality improvement plan, and one orange goal, that quality improvement plan related to QIA, if they have a quality improvement award, and you would have many short and long-term goals that may or may not relate to the overarching continuous quality improvement plan and may or may not relate to the QIA. Any questions about that?
There's some questions in the chat, Sarah. So we've got, since the quality recognition is something that is already planned and providers need to do it anyway, can you please give an example of what they would write as a plan?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I see exactly what you're saying. Is a very obvious goal would be to complete the things you need to do to recognize, to get a recognition level. But this is about taking the program profile report and thinking about, okay, if we know that we're going to be doing video highlights, it's not just the goal of doing video highlights, it's the goal of looking at what are your program's strengths and areas of improvement, and where do you want to go with your video highlights. So that program profile report is really informing the coaching services that you're offering, and that the video highlight goal might not just be, my goal is to have a video highlight finalized, but my goal is to improve in this area, or to build upon my strength in this area, or go do something that I haven't done before based on that program profile report. So you're really creating a roadmap for quality improvement that, as you say, kind of assumes that there's going to be steps along the way that are part of the recognition process. But this is kind of fleshing out what kind of content areas you want to go through, and really demonstrates, in terms of demonstrating the story of coaching, I think what that really demonstrates for us in this new process that's more provider-led, that we're being intentional about the services that we're providing and utilizing that program profile report and the voice of the provider to say, we're not just going through the steps and picking random things, we're really being intentional about what it is within those steps, those components that we need to complete. What is it that our end game is? What is our overarching quality improvement goal? I hope that helps. I see Kelly, your hand is up.
Yeah, I understand the framework for the goals. I'm concerned that this is going to really be confusing for some of the providers that I work with, the similarity in language used. And also I'm wondering how the summary goals that are written on the report play into this. And I see that as another potential area for, well, not just potential, it has been a little source of confusion when it comes time to develop a goal and those things are noted on there. I don't know, it seems to be really the use of the term goal.
Yes.
in so many different ways has been a source of confusion. So that's an observation.
Thank you for that. My reaction to that is that I think that there is value in sharing these goals with the provider for sure. But there's also a value to making sure that we're documenting how coaches are enriching the early achievers experience. And so I think a big part of this is your 3-year continuous quality improvement plan is documentation that you had a rich conversation with your provider about the goal on the program profile. And if you were going to say, have a conversation with a provider and you said, this goal on this report so resonated with me and my provider, we definitely want this one to be our focus over the next 3 years. I mean, copy and paste the language into the notes. It doesn't have to be different than what's on the program profile. It's really about having that dialogue with the provider and having it documented that this is how we're interpreting our program profile report. And this is how we're developing our roadmap for our coaching together. If that makes sense. And I would love to invite the program team to chime in if they have any additional context they want to provide around how this interacts with program profile.
And then regarding the integrity of the process, is there any built-in accountability for complying or working towards these goals as tied to the QIA? Or is that just an automatic that's going to happen or not, kind of like it is current?
It's a really good question. We are going to talk later about a new report that we're going to be sending out with the weekly report and the kind of accountability measures that come with these goals. So I'm going to share that in a little bit, and I invite you to chime in if it doesn't make sense after that.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah, I'm sorry, my voice is really working through a cold. And I think that these are new, labels of goals that we're using internally as we're trying to move towards stronger data demonstrating the value of coaching. I think what I'm hearing from Kelly is that this might be best suited as internal language for coaching. That what feels natural for me, being a coach in the past, is that as we're hearing our providers say, hey, I want to take this training that's coming up and, try to get incentive, I think that would be helpful PD for me. Or they might say, I am not doing child screening. That's something I'd like to think about in the future. That then internally, us as coaches would segment those things. Like, here's a short-term goal. Let's make it a SMART goal. Do you know, like, which training organization, by when are you going to register? And it is, I think, more organic for the coach to compartmentalize the goals. Providers don't speak like this, right? This is something that we're trying to speak to our funder around the value of coaching. And so, Kelly, I appreciate that as you're starting to use this, that perhaps a best practice for us is going to be, this is kind of our internal lingo. And just like we don't speak acronyms to providers, that we would help kind of be the bridge to where these goals sit. And so I hope you can hear me. I'm just battling a cold, but happy to follow up next week when I have more of a voice.
Thank you, Sandy. That's super helpful context.
Yep. Very helpful. Yes.
All right. I also see in the chat but there are some questions about the data form. The coaching touch point form is having a little glitch. We were trying to go live right as the webinar started so that we could show you a new feature, but there seems to be a little glitch. So don't worry, we'll keep it up right now so I can give you a little preview. And then if we need to, we can take it down and do some troubleshooting before we go live. Hopefully by the time it is live, it will be more useful and not cumbersome. All right, so the next section of this infographic is a little bit more about some of the additional fields that we collect around goal setting and how those help tell the story of coaching. So we have up on this area, we're really talking about these are the categories in the goal type, which is this bottom circle here. And that, as Sandy was saying, it is very much internal lingo around this defines how the goals related to our early achievers CQI cycles. This really gives us a sense of where it fits within the process and what overarching kind of category the goal is in. And then we also have the goal source component, and that's being able to say, this is related to video highlights 1, or this is related to program profile, or this is related to video highlights 2, or this is related to dual language. And we'll continue to add items to that pick list as components get added, or if any of them are not currently added. And this allows us to demonstrate how goals are aligning with the recognition process. That kind of speaks to that question of, aren't the goals just to do the steps? There's definitely nuance in terms of what's the content that we're working on as we do the steps. And we also want to know which goals are related to those specific steps. This gives us a really good way when we're reflecting on coaching services and reflecting on how effectively providers are moving through the system. We're able to say, look at how coaches supported the progress that was made. Look at how coaches have documented the time that they partnered with providers to not only move through the process, but really intentionally define what it is we're going to work on as we move through the process. And then the primary objective is that kind of rich fields that gives us an idea of what content you're working on. And all that together gives us a lot of information about how are we as coaches enriching the provider's experience and moving them through early achievers in a meaningful way, and what are those categories that providers are drawn to as we're working through this process. What are those content categories that we've been focusing on? And I put our SMARTY acronym on here too, because I think that in the same way, in a very reflective way, in the same way that we want each of these goals, no matter what the type, to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound, inclusive, and equitable. That's kind of how we thought about setting up these goals. Like, what information do I need at a larger systems level about the goals to say, this is how these goals relate to the overarching goals of early achievers, and how coaching really is kind of the breath of life in the early achievers system, and how do we show that? And then kind of on the side there, we have status and target completion date. And those aren't necessarily one of those pick lists that gives us information about what's the goal type, how is it related to the system, and what are we working on, but it gives us a timeline to go along with our goals. And I also linked here the impact user guide, and I'm going to pull that up as well, because there's some good information in there about when to use different goals and descriptions and how to enter them. I'm going to switch over to that. So here we have a section, sorry, it's hard not to flip around really fast on this, so I'll try not to move around too much. One of the things that's a program change this year that I'll just reiterate so that we're all aware of it is that all goals are created with providers entered into impact. And there is a report, there's a link to a report so that you can send a report to providers. The reason we moved from doing some of them in CC to all of them in impact was limitations in reporting out. I don't know if that would, I anticipate that in the coming year or years, we will think about how best to make goal setting more collaborative with providers. But this is where we're at to really be able to utilize goals really well to show the value of coaching and to tell the story of coaching. And one of the items that's really important here is that line that says there should be at least one goal for every provider engaged in coaching. So it can be any three of those goals, but there should be at least one. And if someone hasn't completed program profile and doesn't have a QIA, it would make sense to have one of those short or long-term goals. If you have someone that has completed program profile, they need to have the QIA. So it's a minimum, not the QIA, sorry, the 3-year CQI plan. And we're looking for every provider to have at least one. And then you add the layer on top of that. You also must have a 3-year CQI if you've done program profile, and must have a QIP for QIA if they've received a QIA. So although there is a minimum of one, there are providers that will need more than one based on what steps in the process they have done. That's where I get to the accountability that Kelly was talking about. So in that report that we're going to be sending out weekly, you'll have pivot tables where you can see how many providers on your caseload have at least one goal if they're enrolled in early achievers and not on pause, and haven't opted out of coaching. And then we'll have another tab where you can see how many of the providers that have had a program profile report published at least 30 days, at least more than 30 days ago, and they have that 3-year CQI. That's new, so it's not really right now very robust how many people have it. So that's something that we'll be working on as we send that report out, is hopefully that'll be getting better each week as we adopt the process of, after program profile, having an overarching 3-year CQI plan. And then we'll have a tab that shows those that have a QIA and who have or don't have a accompanying CQI. Sorry, these acronyms, oh my gosh, the QIP. It's easier for me when I look at it in the graphic. And then we'll also have a tab that shows just active goals, so it's easy to see a list of them, as well as goals that have passed their target completion date, but don't have an updated status. And we're calling those late goals, probably for lack of a better term, because we know that the target completion date is definitely a target, but it's just kind of a good list to go to and say, oh, maybe I need to revisit, maybe I forgot to close that out and something has happened, or maybe I need to extend the target completion date, or maybe I need to check in with the provider because I'm not actually sure where we're at on that goal. So in terms of accountability, we're thinking of accountability on the side of our own documentation, not so much accountability of the provider's actions. Although I will be pulling up a screen share where we'll show the data entry, and I would encourage you to use the status updates to demonstrate how the provider's activity around a goal. But the report is focused on our own accountability of documenting and making sure that we're having those conversations with the providers and being intentional about our goal setting.
We've got some questions in the chat, Sarah.
Great.
So the first one, Leah went ahead and answered, which is great. Is it a goal for every teacher or just facility? And Leah clarified it's per facility. Could some of these be added to our dashboards?
Yes.
Yes, we plan to add them to a new dashboard. Okay. Yep. Is it possible to create a goal report for larger centers to update admin on? Christina, do you want to maybe unmute and let us know what you are thinking this report would be for?
So in the past in Wells, you could kind of pull up all the different goals a center might be working on simultaneously. So then you could meet with the director and say, here's what I'm working on in, 6 different classrooms. And I just haven't found a way to do that in Impact. I don't know if it's just me or if that exists.
I will say that we're working on a better formatted way, but the current way to do that, which is documented here in the impact guide under the section sharing goals with providers. If you scroll to the account page, there is this little link called provider goal report. You can open that report, and then it does have the option to go to printable view, and it goes to an Excel document that you can print. It's not the most beautiful, so we are working on trying to make like a more externally facing formatted one, but it still is a good tool for if you need to send that information out, even if you want to copy and paste some things out of that and send it over email. So that's the best report we have right now. We're hoping to design something even more kind of externally facing in the future.
Okay, and then the last question, which I think you're going to go over, how do we note when a goal is complete? So going through the steps of creating a new goal status.
Yeah, great. Let's jump into that now. I'm going to exit here and go to my screen share. So one thing to note is that it used to be called quality improvement plans, and we have renamed it to goals because I'm going back to the infographic. What we're trying to get clear in our terminology is that all 3 of these little honeycombs are types of goals, and only the green and the orange are types of quality improvement plans. So a type of the quality improvement plan is 1, 3-year CQI plan, or 2, the QIP related to the QIA. So this short and long-term goal, we wouldn't call that a quality improvement plan. We would think of that as a goal. All 3 of them are under the categories of goals, and then the ones that are specifically quality improvement plans kind of have something they're linked to. The CQI being linked to program profile, and the quality improvement plan related to QIA being linked to those funding awards. And here we have, so we've renamed it goals. And so you can create a new goal here and add the provider, or you could go to the provider and then add a goal from their page. Either works. I'm going to go to an existing goal to look at a status update. So here I have a goal named toddler curriculum. I'm going to open my goal, and I can see that right now the status is in progress. All of your goals, if you haven't added a status, they're going to default to in progress. And then instead of changing the status here, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the related list and you're going to add a new status. So the purpose of adding a new status is so we can see the history of the goal. And you can see here that there'll be no goal status if I have never updated it. So if I added a status, I can say it's still in progress. So what I did here is I said, I just put in test update, but I could have put here, like, so far we've done XYZ and we're still working on it. It's still an active goal, still in progress. This is the steps we've done so far. The other thing I could do is I could go to my related list and I could say, I want to add a new status. So maybe at one point it was still in progress. Now I'm going to say, as of today, we are completed. The other options you can see here are on pause or canceled. Or I could do another one where I said it's still in progress, but I have a little bit of update about what we've done. I'm going to say that this is completed. You can put in here what the result was. and then I'll save that. Once I've saved that, it'll have a record of the different status updates that I recorded, as well as it'll have updated the current status on my goal. So you'll see in the goal report that we'll be reporting on something like, of those like late goals, you would see, oh, if my target completion date had already passed, and it was still in progress, it'd be included in that list. If I was going and doing a update where I just wanted to say it's still in progress, I would just create a status update to show it's still in progress and change the target completion date based on what I'm now thinking we're projected to do. Or I would go in and just create that status so it's completed. And I think I'll just walk us through from kind of start to finish creating a goal. So I'm going to go into test organization, and unlike the link for a new touch point, you go to this related list to get to the goals, and then you press the button that says new. And here I can create a goal that says, I'm going to just do test, and it's with my test organization. I'm starting it today. Our primary objective, those broad categories of content, I'm going to say that this is related to teacher-child interactions. If you choose other, there's a text box. And my target completion date, maybe I'm going to say we're going to spend a year on this.
Sarah, we got a request to slow down a little bit on these steps.
Oh, okay, sorry. So we filled in our name, we've got the account. Like I said, we went to the account, so it was already filled in. If you go to that goals tab, so I'm going to go back and do it again. If I'm here at the beginning and I want to create a goal, I can either go directly to goals and click new, but this provider account field is going to be blank. That's fine, you can fill it out from here. Or if I don't want to have to search for my provider, I might go to accounts and then click on the organization. Once my organization page has loaded, I'm going to go from the details to the related. And in the related list, you can see the history of the touch points, the history of provider update tracking, and the history of all the goals. And I'm going to add a new one. Now, because I went through the organization, test organization is already tagged here. I'm going to pick a goal name. That's however you want to label it. And I'm going to pick a primary objective. So this is kind of that content of what are we working on through this goal. And it's just one. So it could be something that it's kind of overlapping. I would use your best judgment to say, I think this goal is most related to this category. And then we have a start date. It's going to default to today. If you're, maybe you're going in and you're going to enter a 3-year CQI plan, and you already had that conversation. You already sat down and discussed program profile, and you have a good sense of what you and the provider had agreed on as a long-term goal. I might go back and change this date to be older. If I said, oh, actually, we had that conversation in July. So I'm going to mark that as when we started. And then your target completion date. So however far out you think you're going to go. And this, it's good in this to remember our SMARTY acronym, because we want it to be specific and measurable and some other things, and then time bound. Our goal type. So in this example, I might say this is my 3-year CQI plan. And I can put in a goal description. What is the actual actions we're trying to make and end plan we're trying to get to. And then our goal source component. This might not be applicable, but it is required. You can see that with the little asterisk. We did that because we really want to be able to demonstrate how goals are related to the recognition process and being able to report on goals in a way that shows how many goals are related to specific components. If it's not, that's no problem. You can just pick not applicable other. The reason we did that is just so that it wouldn't be forgotten. So if it's at all related to a component, we want to make sure we can report on that, but you always can choose other if it's not. You can also pick multiple options. So I could pick video highlights, one, and program profile if I wanted to. It just won't let me make it blank once I've added something because it's a required field. And the current status, you don't have to fill anything out here. This will automatically fill out. And this is only for legacy goals. You don't have to fill out anything there either. So that's everything that you fill out for a goal. And then we'll click save. So now we can see this goal here. It says the test is what I named it. It was child outcomes. It automatically set to in progress. And I set it as starting in July. Here I can go back to it. I can make changes to it here if I want to edit. I can also go in and change the status. So maybe this was a goal I created in July and I'm actually having an update for it. So maybe I had a milestone that was related to it. And I'm now going to go put in that this is still in progress. And as of this date, we finished some kind of PD opportunity, and that was part of the goal. Sometimes it makes sense to have updates in the status. Sometimes other items will be goals that, like I said, are related to the umbrella. So you might have a overarching CQI plan, and then you have smaller goals. And so the status of those would be on their own, but you could also update kind of milestones towards this goal as you go. As well as I can go in here and say that this is on pause if we're taking a break from it, or it's completed, or we've decided it's no longer an applicable goal and we're canceling it. Okay, I'm going to pause for questions.
Yeah, I can read some questions from the chat. So we got a few kind of comments and questions that going back and forth, navigating from account to related to goals to related feels like wells, feels complicated. And so I will just say we are adding a way to create a goal straight from the touch point form. And so Sarah will go over that in just a minute, and hopefully that can help with that.
Yeah.
Here's a great question too. When a provider enters their goals in CC, are we to move that goal to impact? If a provider creates their goal in CC.
If a provider themselves creates a goal and you want it to be documented that you're working on that goal, then that does need to be put in impact. Yeah, we're not reporting on any of the goals in CC. And the requirement of having at least one goal per provider, having them put a goal in CC isn't going to count towards that.
Okay, and then Tamara had a question. Do you want to unmute?
Yes, thank you. So I was trying to follow along, and as you were describing the steps, I was doing it. And when I got to the primary objective, I realized, okay, what happens if it's not listed? It's not one of the choices. And so, like, if we've got I'm working where they're going to go through the quality standards and the RRT and the guide together, and they're updating their policies and doing that type of work. So I was going to put it under business because I don't know what else it would fit there.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I encourage you strongly to think about if any of them are applicable and representative of it, because it's much more helpful reporting wise if we can have an indication of what it is. If none of them seem applicable, there is an other, and then you can write some text in here to describe what it is. We tend to not love the other, so like when we
Yeah.
do reporting, and there's a lot of others, it's not great. If you find yourself continually finding categories that are missing or not represented here, we're really trying not to make it a huge list, because the more specific they get, the more it's like, wow, this could be this or this. But if there's really something missing, we can add things. So
Right.
I would definitely try to see if it fits in any of them. If it doesn't, you can do the other. And if you're finding that you're using other frequently, that's a good time to think about what is coming up that's always landing in others, and then sending an email to the impact admin box, and then we can discuss if it needs to be added.
Okay. So with this particular goal,
Yeah.
and I'm not even sure if I'm using the right terminology now, but it's the big picture one. It's a big one. It's what we're going to be working on for the next 12 months. Okay. And then after that is written, the big one. So I think I'm going to put under business, because we're reviewing policies and stuff, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Then each month when they're breaking it down, right? So we're going to do child outcomes. Look at that. We're going to look at curriculum. So then when they're doing it individually, I can check the ones that meets them. I can click child outcomes. I can click curriculum, and those will be short-term goals.
Correct.
So do I have that accurate? So we've got the big overarching 1-year goal, and then the monthly goal as a small.
And you can have, so in your example, you might say, I'm going to create a 3-year CQI plan when this provider is finished with program profile, based on the program profile. And that's going to be 3 to 4 years. So that's a really big goal. But we also have a 12-year plan. So I'm going to also add a long-term goal. And that's my 12-year. And then I'm going to have short-term goals that are helping me get to that long-term goal. It's really up to your discretion about how many or how few you want to set and how broad you want to make them. We want to have the main thing I would take away from that is that whether or not you're doing a lot of short-term goals that are related to long-term goals, or you're doing a big long-term goal and a couple short-term goals, we want the 3-year CQI plan specifically to relate to program profile and that conversation, and what is your very long-term 3 to 4 year plan over the early achiever CQI cycle. Long-term could be anything from 4 months to 12 months.
Okay, so their 3-year CQI plan is getting through the quality recognition process and achieving a level 4. That is their goal, right? So that would be their 3-year. Correct. And then the first piece of that was the program profile. And that took just a little bit to do. Right. It was still a short term, but okay. And
you can definitely put in a goal that says, whether it's short or long term, depending on how long you think it's going to take them, that says to complete program profile. And you can certainly have it in your 3-year CQI plan that what I'm aiming for is to get a recognition level 4, but you also might want to push yourself a little bit to say, I want the goal also to reflect that part of the plan of getting to a 4 is to get my dual language designation. And part is that I really want, by the time I have a recognition level 4, I also would like my child assessments to be fully off the ground, or, thinking about what is the content also related to this long-term plan of getting to a 4.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope I was helpful to everyone else as well.
I think you were.
I'll do a couple more questions here from the chat, 2 related to the content of the CQI 3-year goals. So at this point, most providers can have a CQI 3-year goal of reaching QR level 3 or higher entered into impact. And then another question that says, I understand the broad 3-year goal, but it still needs to be specific, right? So two kind of questions about that content of that goal.
Yeah, I think what I hear you saying is that how can it be super specific if it's really broad? And I think that it almost in a way answers itself of like, well, the specific might be, I'm trying to get to recognition level 3. And that's very specific and measurable and time bound. But in terms of like keeping it broad, I mean, I don't know that it needs to be like so broad. It just needs to be long term. You know, you could have, I could have a very specific goal that says, I'm going to run a marathon, and that's very specific, but it still is going to take a long time for me. It would take a long time.
Okay, and then last question here for now, can you create a goal for groups if they are all working on the same thing?
We don't have that functionality. I would love to hear how often that's coming up. It's not so much that we don't value that work, more that technically we don't have the ability to link groups to goals to groups. So I would love to hear how often that comes up, because it's kind of complicated to create that functionality and impact. But if it's something that's frequent, then we can consider it.
Well, I know in our area what this is going to be coming up a lot.
That's helpful. Okay.
Also,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Sarah. Also, like in pilot programs, like some of us on here are doing the learners pilot program. I feel like that group goal would be helpful because they're all going through it at the same time and reflecting at the same time.
Great, thanks. That's really helpful. Okay, I'm gonna show the new version of data entry that we're launching, and it's instead of going to the related and to the goals or going to the goal tab and putting in the provider, when you're creating a touch point, we're creating a section underneath that says
You have to select the record type of the coaching type.
what else do I have to, oh, right here. So you fill out your touch point form, and then it also has the ability to say, do you need to create a goal in relation to this touch point? And then you can create the goal right here. It's the same information that you fill out. And when you create it, it'll also default to in progress. We'll also make a standalone form for this so that you could go to a button right here that says new goal just next to coaching touch point. It's all the same data entry, and it will all result in the goals being recorded in this section in the related list. It's just offering more ways to get to that data entry. So keep your eyes open for that. We'll definitely send an email when it's all functional and ready to go, because we're still kind of getting through the last of our technical checks and balances. But once we have it up and running, I hope that's useful to you all to have another way to get to goals.
Okay, so there's a few questions coming in. One, I think if you could just share the form again, Sarah, and show what the fields are. The question is there a way that QIP option could be placed in the documentation area on the form? I think, so that is on there. If I'm understanding that question correctly, you can select the type as QIP.
So we've got the name, the description like we had. You can decide if it's short-term, long-term, 3-year CQI, or whether it's a QIP related to Quality Improvement Award. And you can select whether it is related to a goal source component. Oh, I'm noting here we need to make this multi-select. We'll do that as well. And then you can also select an objective, same options, and same other text box if you think that it doesn't fit in the existing primary objectives. You give it a start date as well as a target completion date. And then whether or not the goal is related to a quality improvement award. So all the same fields, just in a different format.
Sarah, did you say that when you choose an option about where to put it, it will populate into the other places automatically, or was that not part of it?
I don't really understand.
Depending on where you start, depending on where you choose to enter the goal, if you do it in these drop downs or if you do it as a standalone goal, you said as it's coming, it's not here yet. Will it go into those other places, or do you have to copy and paste it?
No, it all goes to the same place. So if I record this form here, then when I go back to my account, it'll be saved in the same area where the rest of the goals are. So in that related list, here's where you can view all of the goals. So if you fill it out on the touchpoint form, it'll populate as a goal here.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, question from Holly. Is this moving forward to do this, or do we need to go back and show goals that were completed but may not have been entered?
It is going forward with the exception of if you have a program that has a program profile completed, they should have a 3-year CQI plan. So those ones we should be going back and making sure that we have them. If you didn't have that conversation, or if you don't remember what goals might have come out of it, you can have that conversation again. But that's what we're looking for in our reporting, is that every provider that has a program profile completed will have an associated 3-year CQI plan. The same is true for quality improvement awards going forward.
Is there a place to document people that are opting out of coaching or that are non-responsive?
Yes. Non-responsive and opting out are defined differently. There's a lot of documentation around those pieces, so I'm just going to briefly cover it, but there are more information in the impact guide. If you have a provider that is opting out of coaching, that is in the coach service delivery. So you would select here that they have opted out of coaching. If they opt out of coaching, we would not expect them to have a goal. If you have a provider that is enrolled in Early Achievers and you can't get a hold of them, that is what we call on leave. And there's a whole process for how to document on leave. And this one is actually currently listed as inactive on leave. This is just our test account. And the process for inactive on leave is not as simple as a drop down. There's actually like steps where you say, I tried to contact them in this state, tried to contact them in this state, and then I finally told them on this date that I'm no longer going to be contacting them, but if they want coaching services, they can reach out. So
I think I didn't really mean that one. I more meant the other one.
Yeah, that's in coach service delivery.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, one last question here. In regard to data entry, we put the length of time it took us to create the goal with the provider under the goal area or QIP area as a contact method, question mark?
That is correct.
Sarah, I have a follow-up to Kelly's question. So I've got providers who I wouldn't say are opting out of coaching. And they're not on leave, but like they're just not really engaging. So I'll do things like I'll call in and check on them, and they'll say like, oh, I've been really busy, I'll call you back later, we'll make a plan, and then they don't. I can't really come up with goals for them when I don't know what they're doing. But again, they're not saying they don't want the coaching.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what to do with that as far as a QIP goes.
That's such a good question. And I am going to punt that to our early learning team, because I don't know what is the process for that. I'm sorry, Sandy. I hate to text your voice more.
That's okay. Sarah, can you do the drop down here that says low? And Ashley, let me know if understanding. So we would categorize this person as very low. You know, they're not quite explicitly saying they want to opt out of coaching, but they're not really engaging. And so I feel like you're bringing a great point, because if it's this kind of engagement level, then I feel like we need to be able to make a connection, Sarah. If it's this much, we're not expecting that Uncle is going to be a priority for this individual. And so I feel like we need to be able to formulate that to say super low engagement. I see them every now and then. They don't necessarily want to opt out, yet there's no goal expectation there. They're just not engaged. And that's the true story that we need to be able to tell, and not have it count against the coaches. Because the goal is not a coach coming up with a goal, it's the provider. The coach is in service of that by documenting it. And so I feel like that's just such a great scenario, Ashley, for us to kind of make an improvement there, Sarah.
Thanks, Sandy.
Back to you, Sarah.
That is all I have to share. So I am ready to move into any additional questions or requests. That was all the content I planned to cover.
Sarah, I think now we were going to do some Q&A. If people had questions, we were going to invite them to stay. For those that feel, you know, pretty confident navigating impact, there's the gift of time. But we were just going to open it up for a broad Q&A, and I see some goals coming in. Questions, sorry. Thanks, Kelly. Joanna, are you still able to help with raising the questions?
Yeah, totally. So let's see, I was just answering some of them. What do you do when the provider doesn't want to engage because they have a mentor?
I think it really depends on whether or not they're completely opting out of coaching, or whether they're in the situation that Ashley was describing, where they have really low engagement. I would again document that in coach service delivery. If they're saying, I have a mentor, so I don't want coaching, then they're opting out of coaching completely. If they are not engaging very much because they have a mentor, you might want to discuss with them what it is that you as a coach can offer that's different than a mentor, and say, do you want to just be on my email resource list? Do you want me calling you? And kind of clarify how that provider intends to work with you. So it's very similar to if a provider was not engaging for other reasons. I would say the only added thing is just, I know it can be confusing for providers when they have multiple people from multiple organizations helping them around what feels like very similar work. So the only added thing I would say is just trying to use that coach service menu and clarifying what your role is in relation to early achievers and what you can offer. If they don't want it, then that's fine. Just document that in impact.
Okay, well, I heard you say that if a provider has completed program profile, they need to have a QIP, but I have providers who haven't completed quality rating and do not get a QIA yet. Can you clarify?
Yes. So if a provider has finished program profile, they should have a 3-year CQI plan. If they haven't done program profile, they don't need that yet. You can make a goal, short or long term, that you want them to complete program profile. So you're meeting that requirement of having at least one goal, but it's not until they do program profile that they need to have the 3-year CQI. As for the QIA, same situation. You don't need to have a QIP related to QAA. In fact, you shouldn't have. a QIP related to QAA unless they have received a quality improvement award, because that goal should be specifically around how you're going to use those funds.
Okay, and then we got a question, when can we begin using this feature in Impact? And I'll just say, we had hoped it would be now during the meeting. You now can create and submit a touch point without creating and submitting a goal. So that's all settled. And in terms of the additional section on the bottom, I'll confirm to you all in the follow-up to this meeting, which I believe goes out on Monday, that that's completed, and let you know that it's all working.
Thanks for your patience. I see a question of, do we focus on goals pertaining to their program profile and video highlights? I think the answer is dependent on what your provider is wanting to do. I say that also noting that we're really wanting to make sure that we're in strong alignment with the partners within our system, DCYF and Cultivate, and showing how coaching is uplifting the process. And so there is a value to being the voice that helps move people into the space where they're ready to do video highlights and program profile, and they're experiencing those successes. And of course, some providers have financial incentive to become rated and get a higher subsidy rate. So really those goals are important. I wouldn't say focus on them if that's not what the provider wants to focus on. These are really, the system is meant to be provider led. But we want to be clear when they are linked with those components, because we want to really understand how coaching is interacting with and uplifting the system.
Okay, yeah, I think we've got some more questions kind of still around the QIP, QIA thing. So maybe we'll share the infographic again, just to keep in mind the different types and all the different acronyms that we're using.
Yes. I hope that you are able to reference this, because I feel like the acronyms get jumbled in my mind, but when I look at it, I go, okay, I know what I'm talking about. It's that green category, the 3-year continuous quality improvement plan, that's related to program profile. And it's a overarching umbrella. It's the orange, that quality improvement plan related to QIA, that is specifically related to when they receive a quality improvement award, what is our plan for how we're going to use those funds. Any other goal you make is going to be in the category of the yellow short or long-term goals. So if you're the kind of person, you can print this out and put it on your wall. I love the idea of a follow.
Sarah,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sarah, while you have this up, I want to say the yellow piece here is really to support the workflow of coaching. There could be goals at any time. It could be someone that, wants support with marketing, or someone that's looking to increase referrals, someone that might be, wanting to replace, I don't know, the kids' sink. It could be just anything. It's more than early achievers. Here in this guidance, we do tie it to the other two, types of goals. But really, the yellow is be mellow. Really, it's for anything that the provider wants to do, whether it's short-term or long-term. So think about as freedom. The yellow is really to document any type of improvement that the provider wants to do. it could also support the other two areas. The other two areas are more restrictive. And the reason why is because at the end of this fiscal year for the CCA of WA system, we want to demonstrate the value that coaching can bring in helping providers meet their goals toward improvement of their early learning spaces and services. So the green 3-year CQI plan is really tied to someone completing the program profile. So if someone hasn't completed their program profile and doesn't have a report, that won't be something that is required of that provider yet. The same goes for the QIP. If they don't receive a quality improvement award because they didn't meet the criteria, that's not something that we would complete. So I hope that, and we'll keep talking about it. Once I agree, I feel like in a couple months, we need to come back once you've taken this out into practice, because we want this to be practice informed. So I think, a good touch point for us, Sarah, is to schedule time in a couple 2 to 3 months and see how this is going in real time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll add to that we have, we being myself and my lovely data team have a session at Elevate that's going to be an extension of this topic of telling the story of coaching through goal setting and quality goal setting. So if you find yourself at Elevate looking for a session, shout out.
I love that commercial. There you go, people. Come see Sarah and team.
Another question in the chat: if a center has rated level 3, but now is in the process of renewing and are in the wait list for program profile, do they need a CQI?
That's a great question. Every new program profile needs a new CQI. I would wait until they have their CQI wait until they have their program profile. That's when you're having the conversation and creating the CQI. It's like we said earlier, you might create a goal around getting ready for program profile. You might be doing goals that are not component specific as they're on the waiting list, but you really don't need that 3-year CQI until you've got the program profile report in. Tony says, what is the recommended primary objective for getting ready for program profile? I think that's really dependent on what your provider and you choose to work on to prepare to get ready for program profile. You might say, as we're thinking about program profile, I want to increase my family engagement because I want them to know that they're going to get this survey. And I want them to respond. And I'm hoping that I get some really good feedback about how my family engagement has been going. So I'm going to take this opportunity to beef up my family engagement, and then the program profile is going to give me some good feedback. So that's kind of how I would focus on it, is think about what kind of content are you doing? What activities are you doing to get ready for program profile when that's the goal? It also could be technology, we know we need to make goals around getting ready for some of the components in terms of just getting set up to do them. So there's a lot of things that might be applicable. Just think through, what are your activities? What are your steps?
I think we're hitting a sweet spot, Sarah, and I'm wondering, I know that Leah put as an invitation if folks would be interested in having a place in Schoology for us to keep capturing just questions and feedback to inform our future webinars. And I'm wondering if people are feeling like this is a good time for us to wish everyone a good evening and have a little bit of free time, a little bit of gift of time. And we will definitely follow up on the questions that were answered in the chat.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's always great to see all of you.
Thank you. I wish you all well.
You as well.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.